That was the last set of directions, right? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Alvey. I'm the Assistant Planning Director for Oldham County Planning and Development Services, and I welcome everyone to the November 17th Technical Review Committee meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to review any proposed subdivisions, zoning changes, or development plans prior to the submission to the Planning Commission or legislative body. This gives local agencies the opportunity to review the plans and provide comments back to the developer before their final submissions for review and approval. This body does not vote, either approve or deny the application. Again, we are only providing technical comments regarding the plan. So what the process will be, we'll have the applicant come forward, give a brief overview of what their project is. Then we will go through and provide agency comments. The applicant then can ask us questions or respond to our comments that we've provided. Then we will open it up to the public. And at that time, you'll just come forward, state your name and address for the record, and then you can either ask the questions, again, need to be technical in nature, to either the applicant or the serving utility agency. And hopefully we will try our best to answer your questions. If we can't answer your questions, then we will try to get those to you after the meeting. So we do have a rather large agenda today. We have 4 items on the docket. The first one is Aaron's Orthodontics. It's at the 1200 block of North Highway 393 in Buckner. It is a zoning map amendment and development plan. The applicant is Dr. Jerry Aarons, and the engineer is LJB Incorporated. So at this time, we'll just ask the applicant to come forward and just give us a brief overview of your project.
My name is Carl Lentz. I'm with LJB. I'm the project manager. This is Eric Hafer. He's our engineer. This is for a rezoning, downzoning from an I-2 to a C3 for a proposed orthodontics professional office. My client is in contract with Clayton Lambert to do purchase 1.2 acres that fronts on Highway 146. Like I said, he wants to develop the orthodontics office. I believe he's going to have also an oral surgeon, and they're going to have one more business, a professional business that's going to move into the building also. I submitted the plan. I believe all utilities are fairly close. We've got a little bit of gas that's going to have to come down the other side of the right of way. We got sewer service, water service. We've got an 8,400 square foot footprint. The doctor would like to do a half basement for storage, so it brings us to a little over 12,000 square foot. And I'm showing all the required parking for the zoning codes, and setbacks I believe are met for the C3 zoning. Showed a little bit of the proposed landscaping, the screening along the parking lot, trees that are required. Pretty straightforward. Any questions?
Did you give us your name and address for the record?
Carl Lentz, Lentz. It's 12,800 Town Park Way, 40243.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So we'll start with staff comments. Oldham County Police Chief Greg Smith couldn't be here today, but he did email and say for the record he has no issues with any of the proposals as they were presented regarding police protection from the Oldham County Police. But we'll start. Tom McIntyre is the senior planner for Oldham County Planning and Development, and he is the case manager for this project. So we'll start with him, and then we'll go down the row.
Thank you, Ms. Alvey. Again, my name is Tom McIntyre, Senior Planner, Oldham County Planning and Development Services. I have 7 or 8 comments here. First was, does the gas line extend any further south than the Oldham County High School entrance on North 393? So there's, you can see where the gas line just barely reaches the entrance, but I don't know if it extended any further down. Or if that was
No, that's by the plans I received from LG&E. They stop right there, so we'll have to extend that main down.
Notate the height of the structure on the plan. I know you have in the statistics, just under the, like in the actual, on the building itself, just put the height of it. Is there any plan for the sign? I know it just says sign, but do you have a height, width, setback?
I can get that on the plan. I'll talk to the doctor.
Because
that's the monument type sign, I would think.
Based on the zoning is what the allowance of the sign size is what you're looking at. The current zoning and the surrounding zoning is all I-2. The plan has it as I-1, so that should be an easy fix. Provide pavement cross sections. The detention basin needs to be placed in an easement, and then per the Oldham County Engineer's Office, a traffic assessment nor a traffic study will be required. And there seems to be a lot of open or white space around the building, so you can see where the entrances are. But I would assume that's going to be some type of green space or open.
That's some landscaping. They're working on the building right now. The building's not going to be the box like it is. It's going to have some architectural features that stick out the front and whatnot. So yeah, definitely.
Notice you have the proposed sidewalk on the rear. I mean, is that just for easier access for if you're parking on, I guess, the annex parking?
I don't know if the doctor would want a back door or something like that. This just sort of left them the option open to do that.
All I have.
Mr. Smith? Keith Smith?
Get turned on. Only thing I was going to mention is we have a water line, looks like over to the, what side is that? Right-hand side, as I'm looking at it. Now, I would like to see about placing a hydrant on this property. The other hydrants are over across 393 on the school side and not very accessible. So I'd like to, get with you guys about a hydrant on that property. That's the only comment I have.
Mr. Williams?
There is, excuse me, there is nothing that would impact the school with this project.
Mr. Treese?
It's out of my jurisdiction.
Mr. Urban, do you have any comments on this one?
No.
Okay. Mr. Toller?
You'll just have to get with me about addressing. If there's going to be multiple tenants, we'll just address it accordingly, each separate one.
Okay. Mr. Silliman?
This development does appear to affect greater than 1 acre of land disturbance, so you'll be required to get the KYR 10 permit through the Division of Water. Also, you'll apply for an Oldham County Stormwater Quality Management and Erosion Control permit through my office. When you do that, you'll submit your construction plans with that for review. The basin you've shown on your plans, you'll design that in accordance with our ordinance. We'll verify that during our review. Let's see. Because you've got the entrance on the state road, typically we don't require for the 25-year storm, but the state does. You'll probably have to check for the 2, 10, 25, and 100 for that flow. No trees in the detention basin. Also, we like to have the outlet for the detention basin 15 feet from the property line. Let's see. Put the basin in an easement, and you can, you'll have to, since let's see, you won't be doing a record plat, so you'll have to submit a easement plat to our office for review to do that. As Mr. McIntyre mentioned, this would, because of volumes, typically would require an assessment, a traffic assessment. However, there are some, I'll say, extenuating circumstances here. One, this is a entrance on a state highway, and the state wouldn't require that assessment or an impact study based on the volumes. And also, we do have a plan for future improvements to Kentucky 393 that would change traffic volumes in the future anyway. So we're not requiring that traffic assessment for this development. Other than that, I do have a review letter here and a red line plan. I'll ask that, Tom, will you send that to the applicant, please? Okay.
You have to email it to red line.
Thank you.
Okay. So that is concludes the agency comments. If there's anyone that's in the public that would like to come forward and either ask any questions of either the applicant or any of the serving utility agencies, just come forward, state your name and address for the record, please. Okay. Seeing none, just for the applicant's benefit, the filing deadline for the January 6th Planning Commission meeting is next Wednesday, which is the 24th. So just if you're ready to move forward with the plan, then you'll just have to have all your paperwork submitted by then.
Get everything.
Okay. Perfect.
Get the red line plan for you.
Oh, I can email it to you.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is docket 21-017 Flats on Allen. The property is located at 2505 Allen Lane in Lagrange. The request is for a zoning map amendment and development plan. The applicant is Steve Moss and the engineering firm is Land Design and Development. And they're all minimized at the bottom line.
Right. Oh, X looks like is there a password?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
PDF should be pulled up for you. So just click on the PDF and toggle.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. Mike Hill, Land Design and Development, 503 Washburn Avenue, Louisville, 40222. And this particular project is a zone change from R2A to R4 on a 10-acre site on Allen Lane in Lagrange. This is a zoning map that kind of explains the zoning situation. I know that's not what we're here to talk about today, but I always like to include that to give some zoning context on any particular case. We've got a mixture of zoning all around us. There's R2A, there's R2 across the streets, industrial. To the north, we have some R4 on Allen Lane. To the south, toward the end along Commerce, we have some R4. And then there's a mixture. You can see some scattered R4 throughout the area, which is what we're proposing for this particular project. This is an aerial view of our colored site plan inserted into an existing aerial photo of the vicinity. Allen Lane kind of running north-south down the middle of the screen. Toward the north, you've got the railroad and then 146, and then beyond the southern edge, that's toward Commerce Parkway and I-71. And then if we zoom in a little bit further, you can see the site in a little more closer detail. Just to the north of our site is Artisan Parkway, Artisan Park subdivision, and then to the east, we abut, again, Artisan Park as well as Old Anita Springs. To the south, kind of a large undeveloped property. And then across Allen Lane, we've got a series of non-residential properties. Our site is 10 acres in total. It is proposed for 112 apartment units. They're all 2-bedroom units. It's a mixture of 2-story buildings, and some of these 8 buildings you see some would be 1 stories on the end units and then 2 stories on the center units. There's a total of, I think it's 221 parking spaces proposed, which is approximately 2 spaces per unit. We've got 1 entrance on Allen Lane. We'll be working with the State Highway Department regarding their current plan to improve Allen Lane, and our development incorporates their proposed widening plan. Detention will be handled in approximately the same location that a current pond on the site exists. The State Highway Department's plan takes into account that pond and I guess removing it. But in the same vein, that is the location where our new detention will be located, as it's the most appropriate location on the site to handle our stormwater flow. The proposed landscaping that you see is conceptual in nature, but there will be a landscape buffer around the entire perimeter of our site. We will have to figure out the best combination of existing plantings, proposed plantings, and or fencing that would be installed in those locations to satisfy the landscaping requirements of the zoning ordinance. What else? This is our site plan just in itself. You can see in a bit more detail our proposed sanitary sewer connections, our proposed storm sewer system. We did have a neighborhood meeting last week. It was well attended. I'm sure you'll hear from some of those folks here tonight with their concerns. That's basically the summary of the project. We know this is a technical meeting, so we're here to receive several of your comments for the first time. Thank you, Amy, for sending yours a little bit earlier. So I did skim through those and and I've begun to get familiar with those.
Perfect. So I'll read planning staff comments first. Include date of preparation and date of revisions on future submittals. Include in the site data how many units are 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms. Building area in the site data should be labeled building square footage and correct the total. Should read total square footage of 104,860 square feet plus garage square footages. Lot coverage and site data should be labeled lot coverage for structures and include all apartment buildings, office, and garages. Provide square footage, building area / footprint and percentage with note of 50% max allowed. Include location and size of existing and proposed water mains, sanitary sewer, gas lines, and electric lines. Include location of fire hydrants and confirm with Lagrange Fire regarding the ability to maneuver through the internal portions of the site in an effective manner in the event of an emergency. Include areas of substantial existing trees, including a general description of their type and size. If trees are remaining to accomplish buffer requirements, include tree preservation area note on the plan. Label location of existing single-family home on the plan as TBR to be removed. Include height of structures in stories and feet with note of 45 feet max allowed. Setbacks of all buildings, structures, and parking areas to include front, side, and rear yard. Update general note number 3 with updated FEMA firm map number and date. Include notation of stormwater flow. Include location of any proposed signage. Regarding parking, the minimum parking calculation appears to have been used for efficiency dwellings, 1 space per unit. Please update minimum and maximum calculations based off of all units being 2 bedroom. A landscape plan conforming to the landscape regulations is required. Multifamily development abutting single-family residential, agricultural, or conservation property is required to have a 15-foot landscape buffer with a minimum 3-foot high continuous screen and 1 large or medium tree per 40 linear feet. A lighting plan will be required as required for category 2 and 3 developments, which includes a photometric plan. Provide location of cluster mailbox system. The question is, will each building have their own box or will there be a central delivery box? And confirm that there is adequate fire flow for the 750 gallons per minute with residual pressure of no less than 20 PSI. And again, we did receive the one comment from Oldham County Police Chief that they have no issues at this time with this project. So at this point, we'll start down here with Keith Smith with Lagrange Fire.
Amy touched on pretty much everything I was going to say. I'm saying we're going to plan for at least 3, possibly 4 hydrants, and then we'll get with you at a later date. Then also about the maneuverability, as she mentioned, of apparatus in and around there. Question for you: Are there any plans for suppression sprinklers on these dwellings?
Steve, you have to come up to the microphone because I won't pick you up. Just state your name and address for the record.
Steve Moss, 310 L'Esprit Farm Road, Lagrange 40031. No, we're 2-story, and if you're 3-story, you require a suppression. So
Correct. Any further comments?
Application. I'll get it for you. Okay, Mr. Williams.
Okay, so based on the location of the proposal and the 112 2-bedroom units, the student growth impact would at this point be projected at 33 students coming out of the development. The serving schools would be Centerfield, Oldham Middle, Oldham High. That campus total is at a negative 63 at this point, which is at 102.19% of capacity. When you add in the other approved developments in that campus area, you push that up to 112.91% of capacity. Again, it's we don't have that capacity, but based on the policies and agreements between the district and the county, that would be permitted or could move forward based on that multiplier. For 19 units per year.
Okay. Mr. Treese?
Yeah, as far as Lagrange Utilities, we'll have an extension agreement that'll need to be done for water and sewer. You'll need to submit plans to us for review
prior to anything going to Division of Water. And once we do our review, we'll send them back for with comments at that point, and then we'll move forward.
Mr. Urban?
I wanted to talk about Allen Lane road improvements. The recently updated Kentucky Surface Transportation Block Grant, the STBG funds that are programmed for this project, and the update was just done in October 29th of this year, has the utility relocation scheduled. There's $3.9 million scheduled for 2022, and then construction is scheduled with a $10 million price tag for 2023. This is a transportation cabinet project, and the funding is in place to be able to do this project. All the right-of-way has been acquired, so I think even on this property, the necessary right-of-way has already been acquired. And then the next phase is that I know that LG&E has at least started their design of their utility relocation, and then again, utilities should be moved next year and construction the following year of the roadway. The Transportation Cabinet's rail division has been working with CSX. They have not yet signed off on the plans, only because they're waiting for the utility plans to be finished. They've basically signed off on about 90% of the plan. And again, just haven't given the final signature just in case utility relocation somehow affects the rail line. So it will be a 3-lane road with continuous left turn lane in the middle. Actually going under the railroad tracks will be 4 lanes for future expansion. And then we're not yet sure whether there will be a traffic signal at Kentucky 146 across from Springhouse Estate.
Okay. Mr. Toller?
You'll just have to get with me with a proposed road name, because we'll have a street name for this, because with all the units, and then just the addressing.
Okay. Mr. Silliman?
For previous, I'll have a letter for you as well as a red line drawing, and Amy, if Amy hasn't already provided it to you, this will reflect that. Again, the land disturbance area being greater than 1 acre, you will be required to get a KYR 10 permit from the Division of Water and the Stormwater Quality Management and Erosion Control permit with construction plan review from my office. We did observe that in addition to the blue line stream, the head of which is right at that pond on the property, the pond is indicated as a wetland. So I'm not sure if the state has already looked into that. You said they were planning on removing that. We'll need to investigate that a little further just to make sure. Let's see, Amy mentioned the buffering. On your next plan submittal, of course, we'll want to see the pavement section and whether there's vertical curb around the entire perimeter of the parking lot. Let's see, with regard to sidewalks, if you just coordinate with our office, planning and zoning, and the city of Lagrange with regard to sidewalks on Allen Lane, and that's affected by the 393, or not, I'm sorry, not 393, Allen Lane project. So we'll just coordinate that.
There will be, there's a 10-foot wide shared use path along the same side of Allen Lane.
Yeah.
Back to.
Make sure you don't put something in there that's going to be ripped out later.
If you can't hear, you'll have to move forward. We don't have the ability to turn up microphones here. So if you can't hear, if you want to move forward towards the front, just be sure that anyone on the panel can speak up loudly into the microphones. We'll give you a minute.
So Amy, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but as with regard to the streets, assuming they'll be private roads, we'll just want that clarified, that they're not public use or public maintenance. The detention basin, of course, designed that in accordance with our current post-construction stormwater regulations for the flow on, again, the flow on Allen Lane. You'll have to delete a note I had on here for KYTC. It's not their jurisdiction, so don't worry about the 25-year storm. Based on the volume of traffic generated from the site and the volume on Allen Lane, this would require a traffic assessment in accordance with the Oldham County subdivision regulations. So you'll provide that at your next submission.
Assessment.
Traffic assessment. That's correct. And similar to what Chief Smith mentioned, we'll want you to verify the flow of traffic within the network. The parking can accommodate all the appropriate vehicles, whether it's traffic collection, or I'm sorry, trash collection, emergency services, if a school bus is going to be going through there.
Okay. So at this time, we'll open it up to the public. Just come up one at a time, speak clearly into the microphone, just state your name and address for the record. And you can ask any questions, and again, these are technical in nature, either to anyone that's on the panel or to the applicant. Yes, sir, Mr. Florence. Oh, just real quick before you start. Just for the record, we did receive an email just for to go into the record regarding people that had questions or that were in opposition. I received one from Suzanne Doyle, and then I also received a letter in the mail from Mr. Florence that included comments from Susan and Mike Gall, Todd Hornback, and Carlos Browning. Just so those are on the record, and these comments will be forwarded along with the application to the Planning Commission, just for the record. Okay, sorry, Mr. Florence.
No, that's all right. My name is Alan Florence. I'm at 806 Artisan Parkway, and I'm also a board member of the HOA, so I'm here in capacity representing some of the members. There's also other people that would probably want to speak. Some of the questions I had actually were brought up, but I guess our main concern is about Allen Lane and traffic safety. So if I understand you correctly, there needs to be not just a traffic count, but an actual study done on Allen Lane.
We term it a traffic assessment.
Thank you. Okay.
Levels or classifications, that's what's required for this site.
That will be completed or presented.
Next submittal for Planning Commission, they'll provide that.
I do have a question about the school board, because I just heard the number about 33 students. So how, if it's 112 apartments, where does 33 students come from? Is that just?
Every year we do projections. And so based on the number of permits issued per year and the number of student growth that we have, is a calculation based on the 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year average. And so at this point, we're running on the 5-year average, which is 0.299 students per permit. For apartments, I count each apartment as a permit, even though they're permitted differently. So that's how we come up with the 33 students.
Okay. There was also, I'm just fielding questions, concern about water pressure. Is that something that could be looked into? Because I know that's currently an issue. And if you had.
So that's something that we would look at during the review process. We've got hydraulic modeling that we'll plug that into and see what kind of effects. Our engineers will look at that when it comes to that point. Yeah.
Okay. So just so I have this all correct. So the budget is there, the money is there for Allen Lane, utilities and everything, with a completion targeted for 2023.
Construction is to start. I think the completion date is, it depends on when they start, but let's just say it's 25, only because if they start in the winter, it's usually one construction season maybe, but with the rail line, it's going to be longer. So
that leads me to my last question was, do you have a ballpark of what CSX, like if they started, let's say they started today, how long it would take?
It's a couple of year project. Again, the first thing that has to happen is they put in a diversion track for the train, because trains are going to keep running. And then the train gets shifted over onto that diversion track.
Okay.
And that will be on the north side of the train track, existing track. And then the excavation gets done where the existing train track is, and the road gets straightened out. So again, it ends up being across from Springhouse Estates. And then they put the bridge in and put the train track back on and move the train back over. Construction of the rest of the roadway can be going on at the same time.
I see.
That's a couple years. That's pretty extensive.
Okay.
So the start date is the 2023. completion is probably at least 2 years.
Okay, from that. Okay. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Thomas Marsh, 826 Artisan Parkway, 40031. Just for a clarification, I'm hearing 5 years before, that would be possibly complete. And then you mentioned the sidewalks. Currently I live up in the back corner where people walk down through my property to get to sidewalks to be able to get into town because there's no sidewalks on Allen anywhere. So would there be anything to keep the new kids safe in that area? Would there be any access, putting more people? We can't get anywhere without walking into Old Anita Springs right now. Is there any temporary? I heard you say possibly that you don't want something put in that's going to be ripped out.
Temporary planned. There's the trail, the multi-use trail that Mr. Urban mentioned for the future completion of the project.
Right.
But in between then and now, there's not a temporary route planned.
Be a safety issue that someone would look at for the 5 years that it would take before it's complete?
Well, I'm not sure how we would look at that. Really, it's anybody that's out in the roadway is actually where cars belong. And I know people walk and bike and try to get down to the Commerce Parkway Trail.
Very dangerous.
Actually, that's going to be extended. We're going to start extending Commerce Parkway, and it'll connect to Mattingly Road. And so you'd actually be able to go all the way to Pee Wee Valley eventually. But in the meantime, I mean, I don't know how to provide for everybody's safety other than beware that you're out on the street with cars.
Okay.
The speed limit is 25 miles an hour. And I know Lagrange Police Department have been out there on occasion giving tickets for people speeding. But
yeah, I was walking on it yesterday. It's very dangerous. But Mr. Hill and Mr. Moss aren't responsible for that safety issue. That's what they told us in that meeting. That's nothing that they take into consideration. They told us to talk to you. That
The entirety of Allen Lane.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Ron Miller. I live at 514 Anita Springs Court in Lagrange. That's the property that's directly in back of where they're building the apartments. And I have some concerns about the amount of traffic that's on Allen Lane. You're putting in 112 apartments. That's 224 spaces, and there's going to be a lot more traffic. And as far as I know, we said it would be 24 before they start, but they haven't bought the property on the north side of the railroad track between 146 that I'm aware of right now. So that's going to probably put some delay in there.
actually have all the right of way has been purchased.
It's been purchased, okay. And then I'm concerned about drainage when you're putting in that much concrete. Our property is slightly lower than this. Will there be some kind of
The detention, the basin that we mentioned they show on their preliminary plan is to be designed further to accommodate. So the county ordinance reads that the stormwater flow leaving the site now is measured and they're not allowed to exceed that. So the detention basin is intended to regulate that. I will also request, and this is in the letter that's going to the applicant, that we would also like to see what their plan is for downspouts, because the roof drainage could go in directions unrestrained, and so that'll allow us to better review how all this flow is handled.
concern was about the water because the basin is on the Allen Lane side. See, I'm to the total backside of the property.
What they propose is, you can see a storm sewer system that collects the water within all the parking areas and directs it to the basin. So what we'll review when they submit it, and I can't speak to what they've designed, and I don't think they even have it designed yet, but ultimately we will take that into consideration.
throw more water on me because it's downhill and water runs downhill. And the other thing, if they have any blasting on any of these projects, will the state and federal monitor it? And will there be somebody there to monitor this if there is blasting? Because there's a lot of rock in that area, and some of our houses may be set on some of this rock, and I'm concerned about blasting or that in the area.
There's not a county blasting permit. There is a city of Lagrange blasting permit that they would have to acquire since this is in the city limits. There's also a state blasting requirement or permit that they would have to get if they have to do that. I mean, that's if they need to blast. So they would coordinate that through the city and state.
Because I know the railroad, when they go to that underpass, there's going to be probably a lot of blasting then. And just as long as they have somebody there to monitor it so it's not exceeded, the limits of whatever federal and state law requires.
The best thing is to be aware of that, because typically when there is blasting, if there is blasting, they do a pre-blast inspection. So I don't really know how they determine what that ring is, but obviously you're close enough. If there was any blasting to happen for this project, they then, if you allow them, come in and do a pre-blast inspection, take pictures. So if there is some kind of effect from the blasting, now there's documentation on whether or not it occurred from the blasting. So
that's all I have.
I know they'll do that with the rail.
Thank you for the time.
A lot of rock there. Yep.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Mike Gall. I'm a resident of Artisan Parkway, 506 Wilmar Court, Artisan Parkway. And I just needed a confirmation on, my big concern is Allen Lane. And I've heard the comments, heard most of them anyway, but I wanted a confirmation. There's going to be a sidewalk next to the road on the proposed construction.
The Allen Lane project does include a 10-foot, what's called a multi-use trail. So it's wide enough that people can bicycle or walk, run, whatever. And it will be essentially connecting from 146 all the way down to the existing Commerce Parkway Trail.
Okay.
And it'll be on the Artisan Park Flats side of the street. So that's the east side of Allen Lane. I guess that's the right direction. Yeah, east side.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. I walk my dog every day. There's kids in the area. I mean, to be able to walk down to that existing trail would be a huge.
That's included in the project.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Hi, hello. My name is Susan Acree. I live at 3509 West Highway 146, 40031. I'm a little bit confused. Everything I've heard today is about Allen Lane. And the meeting that we attended, my friend and I, Velma Seward, who lives on the thing, we were.
That's the next docket. Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad to know that.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's still going to be today, right?
Ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, anyone else? Yes, ma'am. No, you have to, it's recorded, so you have to come to the podium, please. It's all camera, voice activated.
No, I can speak loud. Doris Gilbert, 814 Artisan Parkway. So am I correct in understanding then that there will be a three lanes on Allen?
Yeah.
How wide of a sidewalk? 10 foot. So total, how much? I mean, that's quite a bit of spread on Allen Lane. Is there room? I mean, you can't take much more out of Artisan Park.
All the right of way for the project has been purchased. And
From the businesses on the other side then?
Well, on both sides, actually. And I know that when the cabinet bought the right of way, the entrance to Artisan Park was a concern. And I don't believe it's affected at all. I think when Artisan Park was originally, I wasn't here when it was approved, but I believe they were aware of the widening project and they pushed the entrance back just enough. Now I think there's a water line out front that has to be relocated. But for the most part, again, and it doesn't go up the same direction. It goes straight up the hill.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I just was wondering how much you would take off the Artisan Park side and how much would you take off from the businesses, the industries on the other side of the road.
One of the issues, the berm on the other side of the entrance of Artisan Park goes away,
That goes away.
going towards the west a little
Great.
bit.
So then it's open to that'll be really pretty. Not, okay, understand. Okay.
Okay, anyone else?
Joyce Lupian, 905 Artisan Parkway. I heard you say something about broadleaf trees for the
landscape buffer?
yeah.
No broadleaf trees. That was not in.
What you said.
No.
Large.
It says
Impression it was for kind of covering or secluding the project from
15-foot landscape buffer that's required with a minimum of a 3-foot high continuous screen with one large or medium tree per 40 linear foot is the requirement.
tree. There's nothing that can be done like some sort of fence or like they put on the highway.
That's not a requirement, but you could ask that of the applicant if they would be willing to do that.
Okay. That's the only thing that I had. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Is there anyone else that has any questions? Again, either technical in nature to anyone that's on the panel or to the applicant? Yes, sir, Mr. Browning.
Good evening, gentlemen and Amy. My name is Carlos Browning, 844 Artisan Parkway. You've touched on a lot of the concerns that I had. Alan brought one up, was water pressure. I've tested some of the homes around us and we've got 40 PSI. I've talked to our friends at Utilities about that and a couple other things, and I'm not sure that there's anything that you can do because the developer before all of this put it in. But if there can be anything done about water pressure up into Artisan Parkway, up into Artisan Park, we would certainly appreciate it. Peak demand time, you can certainly tell. And I have no volume. I can't run a sprinkler. And if you're going to tear into that road and you're going to do a bunch of other stuff, that may be a time to look at what can be done with that. The other thing is for Keith, fire main that comes down through there. If you're fighting fire on two fronts, one here and one over on the other side in Artisan Park, is a main big enough to supply you? Because we don't want to suck that main dry and collapse it.
Right. Yeah. Like Scott was mentioning, there being hydraulic studies and so forth, and we all know what the hydrant ordinance says, as was mentioned previously, about the minimum 750 GPM, the certain residual pressures and all of that.
There's a lot of smart people going to look into this.
Yeah.
Those just,
yes, sir.
Things that concern me from my past life.
We test hydrants every year, and you always wish that you had a little bit more, but I believe currently that they are adequate there in Artisan Park for the required GPM. And as Scott mentioned before, they go through, and he's the one to talk to about main sizes and pressures and all of that. I don't have any of that verbiage off the top of my tongue, other than what I just said.
Understand. The last thing I have is Steve's project is he's on like a 1-year turnkey, something like that, a year and a half. And That's way before the road gets improved. So we're going to turn a couple of hundred cars out onto Allen Lane in its current form. The quality of the road now has deteriorated. I called both the county and I've called Public Works, and they don't know who owns it. They're in a planning stage to see who, and I think your name was brought up, to who's going to take care of what. But there are a couple of places, like right down from Miss Allen's house, where culvert has fallen out, and I marked it with orange paint so people could see it. But if somebody goes off there, it's going to be a problem, real problem. But somebody needs to be taking care of the road in the meantime until the state comes in and says, okay, we got this. But I don't know who's accountable for that, but I figured that you guys or the audience or the people can take care of it.
Can I to answer your question? Yeah, you're right. So there are there's some background issues that we're resolving. The county is resolving with the city to determine who ultimately maintains it. And I've actually got a meeting scheduled with Public Works and the mayor first thing next week, and hopefully we'll have this resolved and take care of this.
Could some of us get on those emails that go around on the facilities like you're talking about, like road maintenance, water, if they decide to do a water, will that come up on the next meeting?
Well, there won't be a group distribution email. It'll only be between that serving agency and the applicant. Yeah.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Okay, last call. He was thinking. Okay. So again, the filing deadline for the January 6th Planning Commission meeting is next Wednesday, which is the 24th. If they decide to apply for them, for the Planning Commission meeting, again, you will, if you receive notice of this meeting, you will receive notice of any future meetings as well. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next docket. See, Scott.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Do you want? Are you going to stay, or do you want to? Yeah, you can give it to me, and I can read into the record.
That's for
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it. All right. So our third item on the agenda is docket 21-018 Dolker Buckner. The location is 3601, 3603, and 3607 West Highway 146. This is a request for a zoning map amendment and development plan. The applicant is Key Commercial Realty, LLC, and the engineering firm is Land Design and Development Incorporated. This is the ones that you're here for. Yes, ma'am.
Mike Hill, Land Design and Development, 503 Washburn Avenue, Louisville, 40222. This is a acre-and-a-half site proposed to be changed zoning from R2 and R2A to R4 to allow 24 apartment units, all two-bedroom units. This is the zoning map that explains the zoning situation in the surrounding area. To the north and the east and a portion of the south on the other side of Walkley, to the west on our side of 146, there's a row of I think two single family homes. There's some additional single family homes directly across 146 as well. This is our site plan imposed on existing aerial photo directly to the east, well, a little further to the east is the Oldham County Detention Center. And as you move west, there's some commercial properties, and back behind our site, commercially zoned church and another property. To the west, point with the screen, in this area here, there's 2 residential homes. And then you've got fire department, EMS facility, and then across the street, we've got a group of commercial buildings in this location here. Then there's some residential buildings here before you get to the railroad. And then eventually you get to other development beyond, much further beyond the railroad. This is zoomed in on our site. It's 3 proposed 2-story buildings. Each building has 8 apartment units within it. There'll be 4 downstairs units and 4 upstairs units. We are proposing, I think it's 46 parking spaces within our plan. That's almost 2 spaces per apartment unit. There'll be 1 single entry into the site off of 146, kind of in the center of the site, as you can see on the plan. We'll be working with the State Highway Department in relation to getting approval of the location of that entrance and the specifics on how it should be constructed at the construction plan phase of the project, if the zoning is approved. The detention in the upper left corner of our site plan is here. We are proposing a stormwater detention basin. Again, it's a grass basin. It's dry. It will only have water in it during and immediately after storm events. The plan is to capture all of the stormwater runoff from the rooftops and the pavement through a series of catch basins and piping through the parking lot that will direct all the drainage to the detention basin, and it will outlet in approximately the same location. Stormwater leaves the property now at the same or lesser rate that currently exists pre-development on the site. The property to the left would remain residentially zoned, this single family property here. So we'd be required to provide a landscape buffer in that area. We discussed this 2 weeks ago at the neighborhood meeting with this individual. So we're willing to continue talking with them on what that buffer looks like, whether it's fence, combination of plantings. So we'll keep working with them on that. We're proposing a sidewalk across 146. Similar to the previous case, this project is near a state highway improvement project. Just west of this property is the 146 project. It doesn't really affect our site directly in front of our site. That begins just beyond our site. But we did research that and to see if there were any impacts on our project. We don't believe there are, as far as any additional right-of-way or utilities needed relocating or anything of that nature. I think that's it as far as the summary of our project. Again, they're 2-story units. We showed some pictures at the neighborhood meeting to the folks to give them an idea of what it's proposed to look like. Mr. Delker unfortunately couldn't be here today, but he was there at that meeting, and we had a nice lengthy discussion with these individuals who I think all live right directly around the property. You'll find that this gentleman is here. You'll find that the folks who live behind our property are here, and there may be even some folks directly across the street. Those are the most affected, and we're glad they're here to participate in the process.
Okay, thank you. Tom, you want to read staff comments?
Thank you, Ms. Alvey. Again, my name is Tom McIntyre, Oldham County Planning and Development Services. Have a little over 10 comments. A little over 10 comments. You can notate that the West Highway 146 right-of-way is variable. I looked at Meineke, just I believe that's a little bit to the west. It still said variable on that, and I think LD&D did that project too.
Yes, we did.
There's that. Notate the width of the, I'll call the annex parking lot that's behind. You don't have these labeled as 1, 2, or 3, but it's a building to the far west. So where that handicap, where the 8C is on the sidewalk. So if you could just label that, I would assume it's 24, but just put that dimension there. Show the location and size of the water main, show location and size of the gas line, notate any fire hydrant if applicable, notate the location of any electric, or telephone poles or underground wires, label the building height on the plan and notate and statistics, revise property stats to show 3 handicap spaces, not 2. You have 1 in front of each building. Right there next to the striped area. Revise the flood map number to CO120D. Provide, well, we already have cross sections in there, so I should take that one out. Provide a zoning breakdown showing how much of the subject site is R2 versus R2A. Revise the APO for Richard and Doris Brown to show zoning is R2 and not C1s, and that's just directly south of where it says West and West Highway 146. Just make that quick change. A consolidation plat, landscape plan, lighting plan will be binding elements when this goes to planning commission. Show the cluster mailbox units. I didn't see any on there. Maybe I missed it. There's that. And then a traffic assessment nor a traffic study will be required.
Okay. Keith Smith?
Most likely for the fire department, 1 hydrant will be required on the property. That's the only concern we had.
Mr. Williams?
So just like our last round, the serving schools are Centerfield, Oldham Middle, Oldham High. So the final capacity comes out to 112.91. Again, inadequate, but based on the agreements with the capacity multiplier and ordinance, that would grant 19 permits per year with an expectation of only 8 students coming out of it.
Can I ask a clarifying question? On apartments, is that 19 apartment units? We're not permits, because I know you've had this issue with apartments. Where do we land on that currently?
Hasn't been sorted out yet.
Okay.
Because you get 1 building permit, but there may be 12 units in it.
Right.
And staff has been working with Board of Education on trying to figure out what that multiplier is. They still account for it in their capacity calculations. It's just the permitting process is what we have to figure out on it. So it's still added into their capacity and included in their student counts for future growth.
You said 19 units per year?
We're changing it over there are changes being made for other projects coming down the road that is going to convert from permits to units per year.
I meant to ask this question on the last case, but
that's in process, but that is for substantially larger projects than just apartments at this point. But right now, I mean, we adapt to what the apartments are, and it's not really per se that you only get that many units per year. That's how we have to account for it at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Urban, you have any comments?
You mentioned the Kentucky 146 project. That's in relation to the 393 project. Also goes onto the railroad track. All of the right of way has been purchased. So if there was going to be any right of way acquisition for that project, it would have been done.
Mm-hmm.
You've already discovered that it's more to the west of you. So just wanted to clarify that was not going to affect the property at this point.
Okay, Mr. Toller?
Again, we'll just, give it a road name and just, the address is not that big of a deal for you guys, but we're changing things up with dispatch. So we're going to try to name that road just because of all the units that are on there.
And get with the post office on the cluster box unit locations, correct?
Mr. Stillman?
As per usual, greater than an acre land disturbance, right? So KYR 10 and a Oldham County stormwater permit. Some other comments or notes. Tom mentioned a few features like utilities that weren't shown on the plans. We'd also like you to show, it appeared like some existing buildings didn't get picked up or weren't shown on the existing topo.
Very recent, I don't know how recent, building demolition.
I drove by and it looked like they were still there. So
garage left, but some of the houses that used to be there are no longer there.
Removed, and that's fine if you just verify that. Similarly on the contours, the contours don't seem to reflect the roadside ditch that goes through there. And then that'll also need to be accounted for at your entrance. And of course, since you're connecting to a state highway, you'll have to go through KYTC for their encroachment permit, and they'll look at that drainage um, basin. As far as the detention basin, of course, you'll want that'll need to be in an easement. I think you show it labeled in that. Yeah, you show a variable easement, so that'll have to be recorded separately. I do like that you showed the swale going around the site to capture that stormwater. That's great. Um, Tom mentioned that based on the volumes traffic volumes generated by the site, this doesn't warrant either a traffic assessment or traffic impact study. And then also just seeing there's no I guess like circulation for the parking. So we'll need you to coordinate with the emergency services and school transportation to make sure that this is acceptable for their vehicles to use.
They won't bring a bus in there.
Mm-mm. Not in private roads. They won't go in.
Thanks.
Just a few more things. So it appears the internal streets will be private, like you all mentioned. So then if you could just put a note on the plan, I'd say that the streets will be private and won't be dedicated to public use.
Okay.
Yep. And then the MSD currently has capacity in the system for the above reference development. Capacity is assured for 90 days. Capacity can be secured permanently by paying the sanitary sewer impact fees as determined by the lateral extension charge worksheet. And the worksheet will be generated once construction plans for development are received. And then for every other plan you've seen here today, Oldham County Police Department has no issues. That's it.
Okay. So at this time, we'll open it up to public comment. Anyone that has any questions, again, technical in nature of either the applicant or the serving utility agency, just come forward, just state your name and address for the record and ask your questions. You're good. It's all good. No worries.
Can you hear me? All right. Tim Forgy, 3611 West Highway 146. I am right next to the proposed apartments. Did I hear that correctly a while ago that there will not need to be a traffic impact? Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out with the other one that's going in about 5 miles down the road with like 136 apartments in it. It just won't affect anything through there. I know I got 24 here.
I mean, this is an application independent of itself. The traffic counts that it shows would be generated don't meet the level of the Oldham County subdivision regulations, nor do they. I really can't speak for the state, but typically what we've seen, it wouldn't meet the regulations or the limits of what they would require a traffic impact study for either.
Overall worried about my safety because even before all this goes in, I know there's a speeding problem down through there. Oldham County sits there constantly, and they're constantly giving out tickets. But when I almost get T-boned coming out of my house at 7 o'clock in the morning, traffic's dead stop there to the school. And I'm trying to figure out this Oldham County 146 project. When are they set to kick that off?
I'm sorry I didn't prepare for that question, but it is all the right of way has been acquired. And what we're waiting on is essentially the exact same things as for the Allen Lane project you just heard about, that the funding is in place. It's through a different funding source in the state budget. But we're waiting for the utilities to do their relocation plans. Now, you're seeing in Buckner, the telephone poles are being moved away from the roadway. That's part of what needs to be done, but there's also AT&T. As far as I can remember, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the paper with me to be exactly correct, in the state budget, the money is in the budget for construction in 2023 as well. So again, they'll put a train bypass lane that will be on the south side of the train track, and then they move the train over onto that. They excavate where the bridge is going to go, build a bridge and put the train back on it. So that's going to be another couple-year project. And then it essentially goes through what is now Meineke Field, and that where they play soccer, and connects up by the John Black Center.
One more quick question. Years ago, about 4 years ago, they purchased the right to my land to put in a utility box and a phone pole. And before all this, would there be any way they could look at absorbing the phone pole into the apartment complex, since it's going to be?
That's based on where they have to, the spacing of the utility poles and the number of lines that they have. And there's a lot of lines up on those poles. And so that was done based on the utilities telling them that they needed locations for either the box or the pole. I can have them look at it again, but I doubt that it will be moved, only because, again, they've already kind of spaced out the distance in between the poles.
I just didn't know if the 24 apartments there is going to impact all that and the lines.
It shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't impact the line, but I think that those locations have already, they've already paid you for the easements or right away for those, because that's where they need to locate them.
Last and final thing before I leave. I'm a fan of my nice little slice of quiet there. They talked about a screen for trees or fencing. We were still going to talk about that, but I guess that's between me and him, I guess, or me and whoever else. But
Correct. Yes, sir.
To be clear, on the left side of the plant, or on the west side, you can see proposed 15-foot LBA. That stands for landscape buffer area. So we do have that built in, and that is part of the requirement of the Oldham County regulations.
He's talking about a fence, though.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's talking about a fence and buffer. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Just for the record.
Susan Acree, 3509 West Highway 146, 40031. Actually, I reside on the same commercial property as the church that's there. Actually, we own all that. My husband and I own all that property, and there are plans being made for the church to have the property. But Mrs. Seward's concern and mine are basically for the children and the traffic issue. It's very dark out there of a morning. It's hard to see. And if children are out there waiting for the bus, and they usually just stopped right there in front of that one driveway. And that's the one concern. There is one driveway off of Highway 146, whichever way you're coming, if you're going to turn into the church from the one direction or turn into for the church or her property, or if you just consider it my property, there's just that one access. The houses that used to be there on those three lots, 301, 3701, yeah, those other two, the people that live there, they use that same entryway, and then they just broke off a little bit to their left, and there was a little area for a couple of cars to park. So that generates quite a bit of traffic. Now, we're a little concerned about the safety of all of that. And I don't know how, safety is safety, And with the apartments coming in, we ask also, even though they're 2-bedroom and it's supposed to be 24 units, if there was a limit to the number of people in each family. We were told there's no limit. We're going to have 15 people in one 2-bedroom place. That's allowable or something maybe. And so that brings us up a concern as to what kind of property is this going to be. We asked if it was going to be a Section 8 type of property, and we were told it is not. But when the one man who isn't here today said that the rent was going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was going to be like $550 to $650. That's fairly low compared to the apartments that they have closer down to I-71, which is, he said, $1,400 and up. So we're a little bit worried about people who are going to be in there. The lady who isn't here today and lived across the road, she said that there was already a drug issue on either side of her, and I'm not sure exactly where her house was or is. I was told she couldn't be here today because of having to miss work, and she couldn't do that. So there's been some violence out there. We just don't want something coming in that's going to create more violence. Lord knows the world doesn't need any more of that, no matter what area you live in. And so that's some of our main concerns right there. And Mrs. Seward, she has walking issues as well. And she just, they were talking about that fence. Now the fence is going to be, I think, on the area more going towards I-71. On 146, it would be furthest away from 3701. It would be more toward that 3709 or 3707 address. Is that right?
The plan doesn't reflect a fence on there, so their
that
updated plan will have to, you'll.
And he had said that there would be a fence to separate that man's property from the units.
Mike, do you have any comments on the fence? Because I don't see it on what we have.
Yeah, we don't show one on the plan yet. There will be a screen element required. We are open, as Mr. Delker said at the neighborhood meeting, to discussing a fence, definitely along Mr. Forgey's property. And we'll definitely get with you to discuss that more as we move along. As far as any other fencing along in the back area, I don't know that is a consideration. But I would, Mr. Delker would certainly hear your concerns if you're interested.
Mrs. Seward is concerned about how that one driveway.
They're not having any entrance onto the private road that goes back to Miss Seward's property or your property. They only have one entrance off of Highway 146. So they are not using your road, your driveway.
Yes, right here. Yeah,
Yes,
we're not proposing to use your driveway, which is off to the right of our side.
Yes. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? It does not connect, Miss Seward. There is no connection to that driveway. It does not connect at all. You're welcome. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. So again, if you received notice of this meeting, you'll receive notice of all future meetings. If the applicant is ready to move forward, they file next Wednesday. Yes, ma'am. So did you check their address?
Well, I can't say that I did on hers, but yes, all the adjacent property owners within 500 feet were notified. The neighborhood meeting was in Cornerstone Station Shopping Center in Buckner, Mr. Delker's center. It was in an empty tenant space, 2 doors down from the tenant space that was labeled on the letter. So I hung out in the area on the sidewalk, found some folks wandering around, and directed all of these folks into our meeting. So these were the people who did attend.
Miss Acree, did you receive notice of this meeting? Let's see. Verify it through the.
Is your mailing address 3509 West Highway 146? Yeah, we sent one to Douglas and Susan Acree.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
See if it's in here, because every one that gets sent back, I hold on to. Get it tomorrow. We do get them back sometimes really late. It may just be caught up in the mail system because I don't have it. And like I said, I hold on to all of them for situations just like this.
You can contact the office if you want to after next Wednesday to see if they have filed for the January 6th Planning Commission meeting, and we can let you know. Yes, ma'am, Miss Seward. Correct. There is no access. They only have access from Highway 146. Well, if you're concerned about the lighting at your private road, you can see about putting a light up or putting some reflectors at your end of your driveway. Yes, ma'am. I understand. So anybody that that uses your private road, so you or the Acres or the other shop that's there, if you all wanted to come together and have some type of agreement, as long as it doesn't shine in the eyes of drivers, or if you want to put reflectors out, you can, because that is your private drive.
To call LG&E if you wanted a street light.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not going to be pulling in that way. They're going to be pulling into their own parking lot off of 146. They're not coming down your private drive. So they won't be going down your private drive in the dark. They'll be turning into their parking lot that will have lights. Okay? Okay, so the next item is docket 21-019, Old Zaring Road Commercial Center. This is a zoning map amendment and development plan. The applicant is 7900 Zaring LLC, and the engineering firm is Land Design and Development.
Bernstein with Land Design Development, 503 Washburn Avenue, Louisville, Kentucky, 40222. We are the engineering firm.
You're going to have to speak louder and or get closer to that mic.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Much better? Okay. I put together a brief presentation, and I'll run through it really quick what pertains to this board. First, we have a zoning map showing the site that we are asking for a C3 zoning with a conditional use permit for a contractor shop. I think that the relevant part of this is that we are surrounded by industrial uses to the north. We do have some agricultural uses that we border. They are being used in part of the quarry operation that exists back there. Old Zaring is closed basically right after the end of the site in question, which leads us to why we're asking what we're asking for, which here's an aerial view showing our proposed development. We'll get a little closer. We are asking for 2 curb cuts onto Old Zaring. We believe that the traffic situation, being as Old Zaring is closed right past us, is probably not going to affect any kind of traffic issues in the area. We are proposing 3 buildings with a total of 10,350 square feet. We have reduced the curb cuts to 2. I know that was an issue last time we were here. We have actually created it so that the garages to these buildings would actually feed out into the parking lots instead of directly feeding out onto Old Zaring, in hopes that that would satisfy people that were concerned about that. We're showing detention at the low part of our site. We will pick up all the stormwater from all of our impervious areas, which will feed to the natural waterway that exists behind the site as it exists now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Gotcha.
Buddy.
We'll go through and we'll read staff comments and any other agency ones that we received.
Thank you, Ms. Salvi. Again, my name is Tom McIntyre, Oldham County Planning and Development Services. Start with the first comment here is to provide the correct ownership information on the plan. So you have Sue Hedges, but PBA had the 7900 Zaring LLC, and then has it 1700 Kensington Place and not 7900 Old Zaring Road. So just go to PBA and copy and paste that. Provide the width of the entrances along Old Zaring Road. So show the length or the width of that curb cut at the property line and not just at the radiuses going on to the pavement. Notate the size of the existing water main. Notate the location and size of any gas lines. Notate the location of any electric and telephone lines, and any other easements if applicable. Include a general description of types and sizes of substantial existing trees to remain. You have a note on there that says existing trees and shrubbery and all that will go into your calculation for what we require. So then if you're going to use that, you need to tell me how many or what is there so we can make sure that that minimum requirement is met.
Yes, sir.
Provide the soil types for sites served by septic systems. That's just more something along the lines of what Charlie would put. Before I forget, I'll pull that back up. Show areas of steep slopes over 30%. I didn't see much when I looked in our GIS, but it looked like it got maybe hit that 30% somewhere near that bigger parking lot. Again, just double check that, but I had some red squares, and the red square shows 30 or plus. So that's something to look into. Label the contours so you have them there, but I don't know if they're 1 or 2 foot or 5 foot. Just make sure to label those. Notate the height of the proposed structure on the plan. And are these proposed structures going to be the same height? Show and label flood zone A, which is shown along the rear property line. I have it marked up here, but it's where that existing tree line is. It just hardly creeps in, not a lot, but I think it clearly shows it, zone A just along the bottom. So it shouldn't affect your actual proposed siting of the structures, but just show it on the plan. Notate the direction of the stormwater flow. Show tree preservation fencing if the existing vegetation is to be used towards requirements. So that kind of goes back to the comment number 7. Exterior storage will need to be screened from view by solid fence, wall, or building or combination thereof. Be no less than 6 feet in height. Be located at the rear half of the lot. So it did state one of these notes on the right side that you will have exterior storage. So just keep that in mind. I don't think you should have an issue, but again, you have to meet that minimum requirement. Plan shows a 15-foot radius in the right of way. Please verify.
15-foot radius.
I may have left that from another plan. I'm sorry. But revise the following APO information. So for William Ray McMacken, show his address is 7903 Old Zaring. And again, just go back to PVA, and these are probably your subject, or the site addresses, not the ownership address. So just go in there, and it should be easy changes. So there's that. There's one for Dean Hedges. There's a Rogers Group doing business as Oldham County Stone, and then Reliable Partners. So again, just you're using what I imagine to be the site address. Just use the ownership address. And that's all I have for my comments. Actually, let me take that back. I did have a comment from Chief Turner with South Oldham Fire. It's going to be the same as last time from the July meeting, that the above referenced development is within the jurisdiction of the South Oldham Fire Department District, and they will continue to provide service. And this project will be in an area conforming to the Oldham County Fire Hydrant Ordinance. It is not mandatory. It is not a mandatory code, but we would like to see a Knox box installed in each building, or the building in the center with a key for each one. There's that. And then from Charlie Ward with the Oldham County Health Department, the OCHD will need to conduct an on-site sewage disposal site evaluation on this property if or when a commercial building is to be constructed. And then attach an email, which I will forward to you, as an application for that. That is all I have.
Can you read MSD's?
No, they did not send me the first thing.
Oh, because it's on septic. It's on septic. And South Fire, you did that. Okay. Jim, you have anything on this one? Matt?
To address each one of these buildings, but we can handle that with the permitting process. It's not that big of a deal. And just make sure that all the numbering is just clearly marked on each building.
Mr. Stillman?
So it doesn't appear that the land disturbance area is greater than 1 acre. So you're considering that you wouldn't be required to get the KYR 10 from the Division of Water or the Oldham County Stormwater Quality Management and Erosion Control Permit. If later in design it does exceed 1 acre, you would be required to get those, but not currently. Tom mentioned the contours, labeling those will clarify some of the flows in addition to flow arrows. Let's see. Of course, you've addressed the entrance issue. The concern was a significantly large or wide entrance on a public road. That's been addressed with the two more common sized entrances. The discharge for the detention basin that's shown should be 15 feet or more from the property line. No trees within the 100-year water elevation of that basin. That should also, you'll be required to get a drainage easement, coordinate with our offices in planning and zoning for that detention basin. We'd like you to show the pavement section, proposed pavement section on the drawing. You show the existing house, the existing driveways on either side of Old Zering. There should also be just drawn in. And then that's it.
Okay.
But I like to add one more thing. So you have these bay areas that go into proposed building 1 and 2. So show the width of those. And then there is no, I guess, dedicated bay area for building 3.
Correct.
So
That's correct.
So you're not going to have a bay there.
At this point in time, we're not anticipating it, although it seems like it would lend itself to have one. So that's something we will have to discuss, obviously.
Put a note for a future bay area, maybe for like the connectivity portion. But yeah, just notate the width of those because you have the typical size of a parking spot, but not the typical width of the bay area. So that's all I have.
Okay. All right. So now we'll move on to public comment. So anyone that is in the audience that wants to come and speak and ask either questions technical in nature to either the applicant or anyone on the panel.
Well, my home address or my address is at Old Zering Road.
Home address.
5711 West Highway 22, William McMakin.
Yes, sir.
All righty. I don't know where to start on this thing. That road does not end at the end of that property. Oldham County Stone took it over on the other side of the culvert, but they still use it to access. And they come out of my driveway a lot of times. If you don't look over that hill, somebody will run over you coming up that hill. Dan Richter and his brother takes care of it. And they do have a gate back there, but they use that. There's an observatory back there. Plus there's a sanctuary, bird sanctuary. They do butterflies and birds and everything else. And I think you'll find out Dan and them not tickled with it either. I don't know whether y'all looked at that road or not. That road can't be over 10 foot wide. Now I own 2 pieces of property on there. I own one residential at 7823. That's about 2 acres. I own about 4 acres at 7903. And it's, my brother, I run a McMakin rental storage out of it. And it's L1. And I like Dean. Dean and I get along fine. Dean uses my entrance to my commercial property to get into a piece of property he bought at 7901. I mean, it's not that I don't like Dean, but this does not fit. That's how that road's always been residential. There's a nice little cemetery right across the road. There's no way they can dump 2 entrances out on that road. You know, it just doesn't fit. I don't know what else to tell you about it. Amy's got some pictures that Mark Jeffries sent. No, they already have a problem at the other end of the road where you come in off of 329 because they let them put buildings right on the side of the road up there. A lot of times, if there's anything going on in those 2 buildings, you can't get out. And also, I've checked over the years. I've been there since 1985. There's no way to widen that road. Done been checked into. I've looked into it. I've had planning and zoning, everybody else on it. You can't do it. And the road's just not sufficient to carry 3 more buildings and 2 more entrances. And I forget how many, well, it says 2 new entrances, 3 new buildings, and approximately 14 parking spaces. You know, and I have no idea what he's planning on doing out of it. It shows offices on all of them. But there's just no way that road carry that kind of stuff. I don't know what else to tell you. Well, it should, Dean and I have talked about it. It just doesn't work. You know, that side of the road's always been residential. It's a nice little place. But yeah, it's how he's going to stick 3 buildings on there and anything, I don't know anyway. There's a blue stream runs behind that thing. You can't go back probably 100 foot and it falls off, must fall off 15 foot down over a hill to that blue stream. How he's going to work on it, I don't know. But I mean, that's, you know, it just doesn't fit. So other than that, I just really don't have any comments on it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, sir. Robert, are you saying anything? You? No? Okay. He's just with you. Yes, sir.
My name is Don Esterly. I'm the president and CEO of Reliable Partners. We're at 7616 Highway 329.
What's your name again, sir?
Don Esterly, Esterle. And we are an affiliate of Rogers Group, so I'm affiliated with the quarry as well. And to just reiterate a lot of what Billy Ray McMakin said, the road it probably only is 10 feet wide. I mean, it is effectively a 1-lane road. And the concern we have is right now there's some blind spots when you come up the road. When we leave our property, there's a new building that Mr. Hedges put in a few years ago, and it's basically a blind driveway. My employees and I have had several near misses as we've been, exiting our property. And also with the commercial activity that's up on the corners right now, oftentimes if there are any commercial trucks up there, there's just not room to get around them to leave the road. And as Billy Ray said, when you're leaving Zaring Road to turn onto Highway 329, people from 329 cannot turn onto Zaring Road because it's too narrow. And so from a quarry standpoint, we have concerns with southbound, trucks that are exiting the quarry, and all of a sudden they're going to have a lot more sudden stops to make, if there's a number of people trying to exit Zaring Road. And then also, given the nature that these are commercial buildings, I'm assuming they're going to have a lot of commercial traffic. So if you get large commercial trucks trying to, go in and out of those small lots, they're going to totally block the road. And so while the volume of traffic is fairly low on that road, the amount of time of delay that we'll have to endure leaving when they have commercial trucks parked there on the road is a concern of ours, as well as just an increased volume of traffic. Like Billy Ray said, there's kind of a dead rise on that road. So when you're leaving it, there's for the few number of vehicles on it, there's been a number of near misses that concern us. So safety is our main concern. If the road could be widened, that would alleviate our concerns. But looking at the road and just looking at the way the buildings are currently constructed, it doesn't appear to us that the road can be practically widened. So those are our concerns. And again, they would be alleviated if the road could be widened.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Sir. Yes, sir, Mr. McMakin.
I don't see my people here. There's a little church in Brownsboro. It's a little colored church. And they take care of that cemetery and they keep it real nice. And it's right across from those 2 entrances. And it's just not going to work. If they have things come and go, they've got people coming in and out of the cemetery, it's not a good fit for that area. And I just thought I'd throw it in there. They do a super nice, and I thought maybe they'd be here today. They were supposed to be. But, they've already told me that they don't like that idea at all. So I thought they'd have me something written up like Tony did, but he didn't. They didn't. So they may not be able to find Lagrange. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But no, they're nice people. They take good care of it. So I just thought y'all know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You want to read?
I have a letter from Mark Jeffries that says, "To whom this may concern, docket 21009, Old January Road is not maintained nor can it handle more traffic. It is not a passable road. It is also a dead-end road. Because of exterior designs, there's already water drainage problems. The house on the property is not vacant. Behind the property is South Fork Creek, also a small cemetery straight across from this property. Since exterior designs has been there, they have filled in culverts that were installed in the 1980s by the county road department, which in part it runs into or onto my property and has caused damage. I know this to be true because I've lived there for 51 years. Attached are some photos of the existing problems. I'd like Mr. Billy Ray McMacken to speak on my behalf. These will go into the record, and if the applicant decides to move forward to planning commission, this will be included in the packet that goes to the commission members for their decision.
Okay. Anything or any response or anything? Okay. No. Okay. So again, if you received notice of this meeting, you'll receive notice of all future meetings. Filing deadline again is next Wednesday for the January 6th meeting, or December 29th for the January 25th meeting. So seeing nothing else, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.